Product Manager for Scala. This morning what I'm actually going to be doing is looking at an overview of the Scala Enterprise, and once this is done I'll be able to give you a quick demonstration of some of the changes in Designer and Content Manager. And I'm sure that you will have a number of questions, and as there's over 100 we will collect them and send you all both the questions and answers that were actually asked. So let me start off by actually giving you a quick system overview. Scala Enterprise allows you to easily create dynamic, targeted messaging to engage and influence your audience. And there are four main components to this. Scala Enterprise Content Manager is the hub of the system. This web-based application allows you to manage and schedule content and to deploy to a great number of hundreds or even thousands of digital signage displays. And it also allows you to monitor them and actually see the progress of what's going on. Scala Designer is a composition tool and can be used not only for the creation of templates but also for interactive content and for doing advanced data integration. Designer also comes with a plugin for Photoshop which allows you to export PSD layers as elements that can then be animated in our Designer product. This assists in the streamlining of the creative process, and it helps leverage your existing content and your content strategy. The third part is actually a Scala player, and you're able to play back on a number of media devices, including low-cost Android-based players, Windows embedded appliances, and our traditional Scala PC player. We've actually optimized a number of solutions from a number of manufacturers like HP, iOpen, iBase, and IDEA, to name but a few. And this range allows you to select the right device for your needs. Scala IS Advanced Analytics transforms historical marketing data and live third-party data streams into marketing messages that boost your chances of influencing the consumer right at the point of decision. For those of you who would like to have more information on this particular aspect of Scala Enterprise, we'll be holding a webinar on Thursday, March the 14th at 11 AM, and I'll be presented by Dr. Stefan Mangler on customer engagement and analytics. So let's talk about a little bit more about the summary of Scala Enterprise. Scala Enterprise is the first major update to our existing current management system. It supports for our next generation player series, which includes things like the Android players and also the Samsung Smart TV players. We showed a preview at DSC. It's scheduled for release in the latter part of Q2. And naturally, we're just going through a beta program, so these dates may fluctuate a little bit, but we're currently scheduled for a Q2 release. The evolution of our Content Manager has been driven by the needs for new functionality, performance improvements, and targeted fixes. Scala Enterprise brings a number of Scala Enterprise is the first large-scale refresh of the user interface since the launch of our product 6 years ago. What we've done is we're now using modern web technologies, toolkits, and practices that were not available when Content Manager was introduced. And we listened to our users and provided a dramatic and desirable update to the user experience. And of course what we're trying to do here is actually make it more streamlined and make it snappier for more tablet-friendly orientations. The new Content Manager, as I said, has a fresh modern feel, and as part of this update, Content Manager uses more powerful and more consistent user interface elements. And for example, columns are sortable, allowing you to actually manipulate your data more easily. And we also have multiple selections. It's also supported in many views, and more information is presented in a consistent and organized manner. The new interface is fluid and takes advantage of modern development techniques to deliver a fast, best-of-breed web application experience. Relevant information, as I said, and links are right at your fingertips, so you can see here that the item selected is being used in 4 places. And by clicking this, we can actually find out where they're actually being used. So for instance, here you can see that that item is being used in 1 message and in 2 playlists. This is also important when you actually come to delete items. You're also being displayed where things are being used, and you can actually make informed decisions about how the item is being used and whether it's expired, etc. Content Manager actually supports for importing data a very simplified drag and drop file uploading experience. And again, we've simplified that whole process. Scala has always been highly customizable, allowing you to create your own tailored solutions by leveraging our extensive web services APIs. Scala Enterprise Content Manager APIs are REST-based for ease of use from a broad variety of programming environments, and we have a really comprehensive set of APIs for virtually every part of the product functionality. The APIs also support the user access system and grant role-based access to only the functionality a given user is entitled to, as defined by the user's role, and only to those objects that the user has access to, as defined by their work groups. And this is really important, that we can actually tailor down the API's application to make sure that you have full security levels involved in that API selection. These are actually fully documented within the actual application itself, so we actually keep a whole thing there for developers so they can actually test out their application as they go. One of the major items that we've actually included is the support for HTML and HTML5 content. And with HTML5 and its associated JavaScript and CSS3 technologies, lots of rich, exciting, interactive and dynamic content becomes possible. The HTML5 content is not just for the Android players, but starting with Scala Enterprise, the classic Scala PC player can also display HTML5 content within frames or even as an element within the Scala designer composition. Typical features here are in Content Manager the ability to use a URL to specify an HTML media item. Similarly, we actually also use the ability to actually select widgets or HTML widgets, which is basically an HTML5 package which consists of HTML, JavaScript and CSS3, and you can actually use that as an HTML media item. And similarly, in order to support all those things, we've actually added the inclusion of those into our designer product as well. As I just said, Scala Enterprise supports a new family of Android-powered media players and photo frames. These devices, as you know, are lower in cost and growing in flexibility and capability. And we will take advantage of HTML5 for the dynamic and interactive content on these devices. What is key here is that you can connect these devices without the need of a bridge server, so you can connect directly those types of devices to our content management system. A point of interest here is that the Scala player is only supported on specific Android devices that have been hardened for the digital signage application, and I'll talk more about that later. As far as playback functionality on Android devices, naturally we would support the normal media types like JPEG and PNG. H.264 video is supported. Video is limited to a single zone, and depending on the device it may only play back in full screen mode. HTML5 content from a URL, which, as I said, it's actually opens up quite a lot of opportunities here for maybe actually launching your own web-based application as well. So, say a car configurator or some sort of retail-based information system. You can also do that, but as I said, we can also use HTML5 widget, which is a pre-delivered locally. Which, like I said, if you're not familiar with widgets, they're just a collection of zipped up packages of HTML5, JavaScript, and CSS3. And the support from HTML5 based media makes it possible to support basic dynamic content. The number of screen zones supported on Android devices again depends on the device, but there is currently a maximum limit of 3 zones. And since the performance of your Android device is limited, content should be tested on the actual player device before it's being deployed. A point to note here is that the Android devices don't support our Scala script, nor will they support Flash. Let's just close that off. Under data integration, it was always possible to achieve all sorts of data integration using content manager features such as web services and publish occasions, and through Scala player integration through the use of Windows host scripting languages such as VBScript and Python. Scala Enterprise brings a number of improvements and streamlining of data integration through the Scala Designer product that now supports simple XML data mapping, as well as improvements in how data fields are mapped to the visual elements and attributes. The other playback device we are supporting is the new Samsung Smart Signage platform. And lastly, before I get into that demonstration, as I said, we recently announced this at DSE, and through this integration, users can benefit from the power of Scala software to drive content onto the Samsung Smart Signage platform, and this offers a great plug-and-play solution for digital signage users. Playback as far as functionality on these types of devices, again, JPEG and PNG, H.264 video, HTML5 content as a URL, and content manager messages, we can actually flatten those scripts into images, so we can actually get message type playback on the Smart Signage platform. Again, what is not supported is a classic Scala script or Flash. So that gives you a quick overview of the products and what we're talking about at DSE. So let me just give you a quick demonstration of the items in question. So let me just swap over to my designer first. Okay. So the first thing I'm actually going to be showing is the support for HTML as a URL. So I'm actually in a designer product here. So let me enter into this page and actually add a new item, which is a web clip. Let's do a live one. So let's go to www.cnn.com. Now, what we've actually got here is if the URL is of some sort of application that needs authentication, you could actually put a username or password in here. So for instance, say you had a car configurator or something like that you want to bring into your playback, you could do that from here. So we can actually pick that up, we can move this around, add any transitions you may want to it, we can play around with that. Let me just preview that and just see what that actually looks like. So it's actually going out to the web. Obviously I have a slight delay going on today. So this is actually a live CNN page. So we can see that we're actually live inside the CNN inside our Scala playback, and I can actually pick on various pieces on here. So you can see it's completely live as to what you want to do, and as I said, that could be very useful for having a web-based application you've already created and inserting it into your playback. Let's do a second one on those. The other part of it is talking about HTML5 widgets. Now, as I said, widgets is a packaged version of HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. So what we've done is created a very simple widget for multi-clock display. So let me just add a file here. Let me pick up your widget, the clock widget. Let me just push it down here, and then let's just preview that. So here you can actually see we have a live clocks. We can again play around to different types, and that just shows that you can actually create HTML5 widgets as part of your application and display them quite easily. For a typical example, could be something like a corporate meeting room schedule or something of that nature. We're pulling live data from somewhere else. Now we can actually make these into interactive experiences here. So I actually can just see here, I actually have, for those of you who are used to our old content manager, you can see that this is actually a live version of my old content management system. You can see I'm actually inside my old system here. This is a completely live application. Let's go playlists. And you can see that I'm actually working and could be working in any type of web type application. Similarly, I can actually click here and I'm actually now doing an interactive Google search, or I can actually have my own web pages or display just standard web pages should I wish to. Now what it's actually showing here is the fact that I actually can combine our interactive buttons from inside our Scala product to create a combination of Scala-based designer scripts as well as HTML applications as well. This makes things very powerful for you from a creation point of view. So let's move on to that one. Now, one of the things I talked about earlier on is that we were talking about some of the new data integration side, and we've made a lot of improvements in this area for people. And for those of you who are not familiar with this phrase templating, we actually do templating very simply. This particular one was actually originated in Photoshop, where we actually exported using our plugin for Photoshop all the layers so that your designer was actually using standard creative tools. They then exported it out of Photoshop and then brought it into this page where we can then actually layer it up and actually make it a little bit more dynamic as to how we actually want it presented. So for instance here we can actually see, if we look at the list view, these are all the items, these are all the transitions that you can actually see. So when we presented it, it would actually be a very fluid and dynamic content. Let's go here though, let's go back to Element. The way we actually bind information is very simple. We normally right click the item, we bind it to data. We can actually say, okay, what do we want this as? Let's just do this as body text, and we can then actually change the scope so we can actually make this a template variable. So this will mean that a user inside Content Manager can actually replace this item with their own text. Oops, did I actually do that? Yeah. So as you can see here now, the data field has actually got the body text here. The other thing we can actually do inside Designer is actually look at the script properties, and you can change the orientation of the page as you wish to. You can change the page size to any of the standard ones, or you can actually create custom sizes. So say for instance you're doing LED type strips for like outside of buildings. All of those things are possible here. But the piece I wanted to concentrate on here is the actual data tab. And these are actually the three fields that were available to you. So you can see the headline here, the picture that's being used, and also the body text that I just actually bound. But the nice thing here is I can actually take an item and actually edit it and change it depending on what I actually want. So for instance here I could actually change that to my chocolate here, and I can also change the body text. Let's just make some sort of edit here. Add some extra text here for instance, and then as a designer I can actually see what that looks like. You can see that this page is now updated with the relevant information. The last thing I want to show in the designer side is actually the new segment binding to text. So for instance here I can actually come into a particular segment of text and actually bind that individual word or group of words. So I could here say put my name, and again I'm going to make this a template, and then up here in the script properties I can then actually again change that if I want to. Now remember, this would be replaced inside the Content Manager as a field, and we'll see that being used. But I can actually, as a designer, test out different ways of how it looks depending, oops, I forgot my space there. Depending on how it looks. So you can actually do your designer tests and make sure that the layout is correct for all the different scenarios that you're thinking of. So that gives you a quick introduction to some of the things that we've done inside the designer for the new product. If you need further demonstration on designer, we can actually set those up for you at a later date. And so if you're interested in a little bit more about designer, please use the chat window to actually ask for a request for a fuller demo on that side. So let me swap over to the Content Manager. Excuse me a second. So in Content Manager, we actually have a new dashboard. It's a completely different look and feel. As I said, we've completely refreshed the user experience. We have a dashboard that gives you some basic fundamentals about what's going on on the whole system. This dashboard will depend on the user role that's actually being presented. On the left-hand side, you have all the doing, the day-to-day stuff for content, for planning, looking at the network of health, and actually on the reporting side. On the right-hand side, you actually have the ability to actually look at the system stuff, including, as I said earlier on, we actually have a full documentation for the APIs that you can go in and test through. So you see you have all of the things that you need from a system administrator's point of view, users and roles. Roles are important because you can actually segment down what type of activities people can actually do. So we have some classic ones, for instance, here under the message editor, you can actually see the profile that they can actually have. So for instance, the message editor can actually only edit and upload media into that particular network. So let's just come back over. So if I actually start at the media side, our media library is where you actually deposit. You can either publish from our designer tool straight into our content manager. You can actually do a very simple drag and drop. So for instance, if I grab an image into the system here, I can actually upload that particular item. I can put it into a particular folder should I wish to. I can actually add more information should I wish to at that point. Let me just do a very simple upload. I can then select this item, maybe actually put it into a particular category. So for instance, I can actually say, okay, do I have a category that's in this one? I'm going to put it into the retail. I can save it. I can actually add it into my work groups that are associated, and only those people associated with that work group will be able to use it. Let me just save and close that. I keep a full revision of the history of these as well. The other thing that you'll notice here in this interface is you can actually see where things are being used. So as I said, you can actually see that an item is actually being used, and if I click on it, it will take me to where that is actually being used. It will take me to the playlist that's being used. I'll come back to that and use that in a second, so let me just cancel. So what we've actually achieved is something that's very sortable. Everything is sortable by columns, so nice and easy. We can actually do the size here. We can look at our categories. You can build your categories. So for instance here, I can actually look for my personnel, anything that's in my personnel side. So I've actually got some pictures here of my personnel that I want to do. I can look at the preview of them to see what that actually looks like. And it's really easy to actually play around with. Let me just clear that. So say for instance I actually want to do multiple selects on these. I can actually just select these. I can actually edit multiple here, and I could actually want to maybe change their category. I might actually want to change their approval status. I might want to put a very specific start and end date on it. So for instance, if you have media items that need embargo dates, you can actually set these here. So you could say, okay, that piece of media is only associated for a period of time, but in the period of say March itself. So you could actually put those on that side and just save those. And what you'll see on those items, you'll see that you actually have valid status about when it would actually be, and it will. You can see that you've actually got expired dates. So you can go and have a look, see what they are. Let's come back to this. So if I want to take an item and actually add it straight to a playlist, I can do that. I can click an item, add it to a playlist. I can look to see, okay, which channel do I actually want to add it to. So I could actually say, let's find a particular channel that I'm looking for. So I could say, okay, let me add it to this particular one. It will then say, okay, we want to say that's the right one. Let's add it into, let's do this one here. Select that one. So it's added it into the item here. We can select the item here. And if I actually wanted to actually again put a schedule attached to this, I could actually set the properties on this item. I can set the duration. I can set the transition that I may want it. So let's just do an advanced one. I can set the transition. We also support things like audio ducking. So if, for instance, you have a music background track, we can actually dip to the audio at the background and bring forward the audio associated to the item. if appropriate. I can actually do micro-scheduling so that I can say, okay, this is only valid on a Wednesday, for instance, so let's just take that and actually undo those. And I could also put a valid range as well, so I could say, yes, there is a valid range, and it's from, let's say, from today through to the end of the month. And that item has actually been added. So you can see here we have all the information associated to it. I can pick them up, move them around into the order that we want, and again it's a very simple drag and drop type of affair. Let's save and close that. So we've actually added aside things. So let me have a look at it from the other way. So you can see that we've actually added something really simply by uploading. We've added it straight into a playlist. But quite often from an administration point of view, we actually want to see what's actually happening on our players. So we actually have a player status. So for instance, here are a list of all the different types of players. So you have Scala players, we actually have Android players on here. So you can actually look at the different types. You can also see what the statuses are, so you can say, okay, show me only the players that are still waiting for downloads, have different software versions, so if you have full control about what's going through. Let me go to my player group so I can actually just limit the view. So here we can see this items here. We can actually dive straight in and say, okay, what is this particular one actually playing? So for instance here, I can actually click straight into this player and actually see what the channel looks like. So here you can see that we have the layout associated on the right here, the three areas. We have a main area, a right area, or a bottom crawl area. I can actually move these around to actually give them priority. The one at the top is at the highest level, so you can actually lay these out accordingly. And through techniques, you can also do transparent frames as well. I'm just going to reset that so it's the correct side. More importantly, I can dive down into to view the schedule that's associated to this particular player or this particular channel. So here, for instance, in the main frame, I actually have the retail fashion loop. So I have an item here. I have my sidebar that's scheduled for a side, so I can see when that's actually being played, and I also have a core area that's at the bottom and only shown in the mornings. So if I come back here, I can actually come in, have a look at the item. Again, here I can actually change the duration. I can look at the schedules. I can actually add specific start times. I can change the playlist should I wish to, or I can actually go and find out what's inside that particular playlist. So here's the items that are in our playlist. I could actually add media at this point and go through the items I want to go through. So for instance, if I wanted to add this one, I can again select the same process. So what you see now are a number of different ways of actually bringing information in and out of playlists at different areas. Just save and close that. Okay. So one of the things we talked about was about templates. If I just come back to the medium and look for message types. Message types originated, as I said, as a designer package, and we created a very simple interactive company directory here. So we actually have an interactive directory. You can again set all your approval methods. You can look at metadata here for doing conditional playback, but you can also look at the preview of this item. So here are all the employees that were actually associated to that particular item. I can quickly and easily select individuals. So I can actually look at my categories, go and find all my personnel. Let's just do them by name. Let's just rank them up. And then I can actually change this to show me 20 of them. And I can then actually select the one I'm after. Let's have a look at, let's take her, select. Let's change the name. So here we can actually quickly and easily change items on that side, make it available, and that will actually work its way through the system and actually show the individual items. And that's a good way of actually doing it, so you can actually very easily and quickly adapt templates for individual users and allow them only to change the pieces they want to. And that's actually achieved through the actual template administration control. So again, if we look at the personnel side, let's pull that one up. Oops, I'll go find it the hard way then. Let's do company. I obviously can't spell. We'll be able to actually go in and actually side on that side and look at the way that that's actually created. So for instance here, under the items, we'll be able to select which ones are required, which ones are not required, and we can take it on from there. Under the reporting side, we have a number of standard reports that you're able to actually deal with. These are for doing as-run playbacks, so you can actually get a collection of reports. And again, depending on how often you actually need this, you can get linkages in. And one of the other things that you'll be able to do is, if you're thinking about doing analytics and be able to actually drive things, you'll be able to actually drive information or changes to playlists via an analytic pod that may be of interest to some of you. And as I say, we have another webinar on Thursday. So that gives you a very quick overview of the content manager side. What I just want to do is just summarize what you've actually seen. So let me just do that. And so what we've actually seen from a recap point of view today, we've looked at a new interface that's actually very, very fluid. In the user focus groups that we've done, we actually saw productivity in the new interface go up by over 30%. So from a time point of view, the processes we've gone through, remember you saw all those hot links that allows you to get the right information really quickly. And you probably noticed that I hardly actually touched any of the menus and actually just used the links to actually get around the product. The web services APIs, the new set, which covers all of the functionality of our product, virtually every part, allows you to create your custom interfaces and applications. And this actually becomes really important for larger organizations who really want to tailor that solution to meet their needs, and it sits nicely on top of it. As I said, we've created HTML5 content support, and again, this opens up the ability to use existing assets that you may have through the web. You may have other web applications you want to bring forward into your interactive experiences through the Scala players. As well as the introduction of our Android and smart Samsung offerings, that allows you to get cost-effective devices depending on your needs. And we've made a great improvement in the areas of data integration, and as before, it was really easy to do before, we've made it even easier. And as the last thing I said, we've scheduled the release of Scala Enterprise for Q2. So you probably had lots and lots of questions on there, and what I'd actually say is we're going to leave this actually open for about 10 minutes or so for you to actually post any questions you may have. Hopefully that's given you a very quick insight and overview into the product. It's very simple, it's very easy, and I'm glad for your attention, and thank you very much for today.